This is Nick with logosbynick.com, and in today's tutorial I'll be demonstrating how you can create this logo design here with Adobe Illustrator. So let's go ahead and get started here in Illustrator. The first thing we're going to do is create a new document. So I'll click on New, and we're going to want to have 1920 by 1080 pixels. That works pretty well. Go ahead and click Create. And once we have our document created, we want to set up our page so that we're all working with a similar setup. So what I like to do is I like to go to Window and select the Align menu right here. Go ahead and click Align, and that should open up this little flyout menu right here. And then we're going to go to View, and we're going to deselect Snap to Pixel. Go back to View. Make sure you have Smart Guides. Have that deselected as well. We only want Snap to Point. And once we have that set, we're all good to go. So the first thing we're going to do here in Illustrator is create a polygon. So we'll come over here to the where it says rectangle and click and hold on that, and it's going to bring up this little flyout menu with all these different shapes. And the shape we're going to choose is the polygon tool. So go ahead and select that, and then we're going to bring the cursor over to the canvas, and on the keyboard we're going to hold Shift and Alt and click and drag to create a polygon like that. And then go ahead and let go, and it should create that shape. We want that polygon to be filled in with black, so we'll come up here to our color picker, we'll make this black, and then this next color over here, the alternate color, which is the stroke, we don't want any stroke on there, so I'm going to click on the little red slash that says none, and then click to close that out. And what I want to do now is take this and bring the opacity of that down a little bit. So I'll come up here to where it says opacity and bring that down a little bit, about roughly in half. Doesn't have to be exact, that's pretty good. And once we've done that, we can come over to the rotate tool, which is over here, and we're going to want to rotate this thing around so that the points, so that the corners are going vertically instead of sitting flat like that. So with the rotate tool selected, I'm just going to click and drag on the graphic and just start to rotate it around. And once I do that, I'm going to hold down Shift on the keyboard, and it's going to lock it to certain, I think 45-degree rotations like that. And once you see the blue outline with the corners going vertically like that, you can go ahead and let go of everything. And that's what we want right there. So what we're going to do now is we want to copy whatever the width of this is. So come up here to where it says W, and the box next to that, that's the width of the shape you're working with. So go ahead and just click and drag over all of that, and then hit Control C to copy that. And now we're going to create a circle that's the same width. So we'll come back up here to our little Shapes tool and click and hold on that. And then we'll go to the Ellipse tool. And then come over here and just hold Shift and Alt on the keyboard again and click and drag to create another circle like that. And I want to take the opacity of this and bring this down about in half like that. And close out of that. And we want to make the width of this the same as the polygon. So I'm going to come back up here. Before you do that, make sure you have this lock icon turned on where it says Constraint Width and Height of the Proportions. This is what it looks like turned on. This is what it's turned off. We don't want that slash going through that icon. We want that turned on like that. So let's go ahead and erase whatever number is in there for the width value where it says W, and just hit Control V to paste that, then hit Enter. And that should make that the same width that this polygon is. And what we're going to do now is grab the Select tool, which is up here, and I'm going to put this over here near the polygon, and I'm just going to click and drag over both of those so we have them both selected. And under the Align menu, we're going to align it horizontally and vertically like that. And now we can click off of that graphic to deselect everything. And now we want to click on just the circle right there, and we want to click and drag this down. And once we start to click and drag it down, you can hold Shift on the keyboard, and that'll lock it onto the vertical axis. And we want to bring this down to about right about there, I'd say. That's pretty good. And what we want to do now is zoom in over this left-hand side. So in order to zoom in, I'm going to hold Alt on the keyboard and roll up on the mouse wheel. And it's going to zoom wherever I have the cursor at. So let me move back over there. If you'd like to move the page around like what I'm doing here, you just hold down the space bar and click and drag, and it'll let you move the page around. So I'm going to zoom in over this little left-hand area over here. And I'm going to grab the pen tool, which is right here. And I'm going to snap the cursor onto this node right here, this corner, and click. Then I want to bring this line down, and I'm going to hold Shift on the keyboard so it locks it to the vertical axis. So we bring it straight down until it snaps to this node on the circle right here. Then go ahead and click. And now we want to bring this over to the right. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to move. I'm actually going to zoom out first. I'm going to hold Alt and roll down the mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit. And then I'm going to press down on the space bar and click and drag so I have the rest of the graphic within my view. And once I've done that, I'm going to hold Shift to lock that blue line onto the horizontal axis and bring it straight across until it snaps onto this right-hand node, and then click. And then while still holding Shift, bring the line straight up until it snaps to this node, and then click. And then bring it back to the anchor node, or the starting point over there, like that, to connect it all back together. And we'll go back to the selection tool. I'm going to zoom out by holding Alt and rolling down the mouse wheel. Click and drag over all of that. And we want to unify it all together. So we're going to come up here to where it says Pathfinder. And under Shape Modes, I'm going to highlight where it says Unite. Go ahead and click Unite. And that's going to unify everything together. And I want to take the opacity of that and bring that down a little bit. And then close out of that. And I'm actually going to scale this down a little bit. It's a little too big. I'm just going to hold Shift and Alt on the keyboard and grab this bottom corner node right here and just scale that down a little bit. And it's important to hold Shift and Alt because that locks it. That holds the perspective when you're scaling it. If you don't hold those, you kind of get like this free-form, willy-nilly change, and we don't want any of that. So we're going to leave that just how that is. What we want to do now is create the border going around the outside of that shape. So to do that, with that shape selected, I'm going to go to Object, Path, and Offset Path, and click on that. And what I want to do now is where it says Offset, I'm going to change this to about 12 pixels, and I'm going to go ahead and click the Preview button to see what that looks like. And what that's going to do is that's going to create another shape beneath it that's 12 pixels thicker like that. And this may depend if you're working with a screen that has a different resolution than mine. You may have to make yours bigger or smaller than 12 pixels. So just eyeball it until it looks about right. You may have to try something like maybe 8 or maybe 14. But for me, 12 works pretty well. We want it to be about that thickness right there. That's pretty good. Go ahead and click OK, and we now have that new shape. I'm going to go ahead and make that shape a different color. I'm just going to make that red. Close out of that, and we're going to do that one more time. So we'll go to Object, Path, and Offset Path, and go ahead and click Preview to see what that looks like. We're going to use the same size that you used last time. Go ahead and click OK, and then that one I will make black. And once we've done that, I'm going to hold Shift and click on the red shape, and come over here to where it says minus front. Go ahead and click minus front. And that's how we end up with that little border going around the outside of the object. So the next step would be we're going to create some text going over this. So to do that, I'm just going to click and drag these and put them off to the side for now. We'll come back to that in a minute. Click off of the graphic to deselect everything. I'm going to grab the text tool, which is right here, and click on the canvas. And up here where it says the default font for Illustrator, I think, is Myriad Pro. I'm just going to change that font to, the font I'm going to use is called League Gothic. If you'd like to use that font as well, I will have a link to that in the description of the video. So there we have League Gothic set, and in all caps I'm just going to type logo design. And that's really small, so I'm going to make that bigger. I'm going to grab the select tool. I'll actually change the color of that to red first, so I'll make that red. And then I'll hold Shift and Alt and grab the corner arrow and just scale that up. And let me place this over the graphic here so I can eyeball about how big we want it to be. We want this text to be a little bit wider than this graphic going beneath it. So go ahead and just hold Shift and Alt and resize it as necessary. And once we've done that, we can convert that to, we can outline that by going to Path. No, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. We'll go to Type, Create Outlines. Like that. And what we're going to do now is create a rectangle going around that. So let's come back up here to our Shapes tool and click and hold on that. And we'll go to the Rectangle tool and just click and drag to create a rectangle going around the logo design word. And I'm going to make that black. I'm going to bring the opacity of that down about in half. And then I'm going to right click on that rectangle and go to Arrange, Send Backward. So it puts it beneath the word right there. And what I want to do now is grab the selection tool, click and drag over both of those, and then come back up here to the alignment tab and make sure we just center it horizontally and vertically. And I'm going to come back over here and put this back over this graphic right here. Right about there. I'm actually going to hold Control and Shift and scale this down a little bit. It doesn't need to be quite that big. And right about there is pretty good. And once we've done that, we can click and drag over everything and just make sure it's all aligned horizontally like that. And let me just bring this back into the center of view here. Click off of it to deselect everything. Now we're going to click on just the box around the text, and we're going to offset this as well. So we'll go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and go ahead and click on Preview. And we're going to use the same size we've been using for the previous two offsets that we made, which that's pretty good right there. Go ahead and click OK. And what I'm going to do now is hold Shift and click on the smaller box above it. And then while still holding Shift, I'll click on the logo design text, so we have all three of those objects selected. And what we want to do now is give this a bit of a slant like you see here in the thumbnail. So to do that, I'm going to come over here to the scale tool. I'm going to click and hold on that and go down to the shear tool and select that. And then I'm just going to click and drag this up to shear it up like that. But after I do that, I'm going to hold Shift so I can lock it onto the vertical axis like that. And we're going to shift it about maybe about that much. That should be pretty good. And once we've done that, we can grab the select tool, click off of the graphic to deselect everything. And now we want to zoom into this top left, top left corner over here. So I'm going to hold Alt and roll up on the mouse wheel. And I'll grab the pen tool, which is right here. And I'm going to snap the cursor onto this corner right here and click. And then hold Shift and bring this blue line out diagonally like that. And then click right into the black area of this outline. Holding Shift, bring it straight down to about here, and then click. And then we can let go of Shift and snap it back to the anchor point. And again, we'll go to the Select tool. Let me click on it again. We got to get the opacity to bring that down a little bit. That's pretty good. Now let me zoom out by holding holding Alt and rolling down the mouse wheel. And I'm going to zoom in over here. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom right corner right here. So let me zoom in on that. And again, if you need to move the page around, you just press down the space bar and move the mouse. And I'm going to grab the pen tool again. I'm going to snap to this corner right here and click. And I'm going to hold down Shift so I can bring the line straight down, lock it at that angle like that, and click. Bring it straight up, and then let go of Shift and connect it back to the starting point. And we go to the Select tool. We're looking for the opacity here, but we're going to have to click on it again. There we go. Bring the opacity down. We're going to zoom out by holding Alt and rolling down the mouse wheel. And there we have that. So the next step would be, the next step would be creating the text going along the inside border right here. Like you see it here, it says with Illustrator going along the bottom there. So that's what we're going to create next. What we're going to do now is click on this shape on the inside here, and we're going to copy the width of that. We might have that copied already, but we're going to copy it again just to be safe. Highlight it and hit Control-C to copy it. And we're going to create another circle. So come up here to where it says rectangles, click and hold and go down to ellipse. And then hold Shift and Alt and click and drag to create another perfectly round ellipse like that. And I'm going to take the opacity of that, bring it down about in half. And I'm going to make this one green, just for now. We're going to make that green. And again, we're going to change the width of that. So erase whatever's in there, then hit Control-V to paste it in. Hit Enter. And what I want to do now is I'm going to grab the Select tool, and I'm going to bring this green circle to the top right of the graphic right here. And then I'm going to hold Shift and click on the inside graphic right there, so we have them both selected. And down here where it says Align To, under the Align tab, make sure you have Align to Selection selected. And once we've done that, we'll go ahead and align horizontal align left, and then vertical align bottom. And it's going to put that circle flush with the bottom of that graphic right there. And now we can click off of that to deselect everything. So I'll click on just the green circle right there and hold Shift and Alt. And I'm just going to scale that in just a little bit, maybe about that much. Maybe not even that much, maybe about that much, because we want to put some padding between the text and the edge of that graphic there. So that's what we're doing here. So I'd say that's pretty good right here. What we're going to do now is put some text along the edge of this circle, which is why we created this circle. So we'll go to the text tool, click and hold on that, and come down to where it says type on a path. And go ahead and click on the edge of the green circle right there, and it's going to create some placeholder text there. And the font I'm going to use for this one, I'm going to use something different than League Gothic. I'll use something like Avant-Garde or something like that. Something basic, just a very like a nice sans font with a like a heavy weight, something bold. Text gyre will work there. Just something basic should work. So once we've done that, I'm just going to write in all caps with Illustrator. Oops, a little bit of a typo there. And what I'm going to do now is we have to position this text so that it's not where it is. It needs to be going on the inside of the circle and over here. So to do that, I'll come up here to the Direct Select tool and click on that. And once we click on that, we're going to get these two little nodes right here. And wherever those two nodes are for you, go directly across that circle and you're going to see this blue line sticking out. And what we want to do is we want to grab this blue line, and it's going to let us, it's going to act as like a little handle for us to place where the text goes. And if you notice, wherever it's blue is where the text is going to be. So I'm going to place it right about there. That's pretty good. And I'm going to go back to the text tool, and I'm going to click and drag over all that text to highlight it. And I'm just going to come up here to the size, and I'm just going to hold up on that arrow to make it a little bigger. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold Alt and the right arrow key just to space it out a little bit like that. And that looks pretty good right there. And what I want to do now is finally just rotate it around a little more so it lines up nicely. So we'll go back to the Direct Select tool. And there's that line right there. We go ahead and just bring that around. And this could be a little tricky. You may have to play with it a little bit. Right about there. That should work pretty well. Maybe a little more. There we go. That should be good enough. And what we can do now is go back to the Select tool, and we can go to Type and Create Outlines, and that should finalize that now. That's no longer a text object. That's now a like a path, like a vector object that we can manipulate. So what we'll do now is just click off of the graphic to deselect everything. Next, we're going to put a little star in the center here. So to do that, we'll come back up here to our Shapes tool, click and hold over that to get our menu. We'll grab the Star tool. Hold Shift and Alt and click and drag to create a star like that. Maybe about that size. Grab the Select tool and just go ahead and place that in the graphic right about there. That's pretty good. And finally, we're going to put our little bull graphic up here. So I'll have a link to that in the description of the video. Go ahead and download the .svg file from the link that I give you. It's going to be a vector silhouette of a bull. Just there's going to be different sizes you can download of like PNGs. Make sure to choose the .svg file, and once you've chosen that, save it to somewhere where you can easily access it, and then go to File, Place, and I'm going to go to the desktop and Bull. There it is. And I'm going to place it right in the graphic right there. I'm just going to hold Control and Shift. I'm sorry, no, Shift and Alt, and scale this down. Bring this over here to the center of the graphic. And I'm going to grab we actually need to just flip this around and change the positioning a bit to match up nicely with the slant of this text. So to do that, I'm going to come over to the Rotate tool, click and hold on that and go down to the Reflect tool. And then I'm just going to click and drag and just rotate this around until it's sitting nicely like that. That's pretty good. And go to the Select tool, put that right about there, and click off of the graphic to deselect everything. And we're pretty much done constructing everything. All we have to do now is just finalize it all. So to do that, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to click on this little tab up here that we drew earlier, and then hold Shift and click on this little tab down here. And then while still holding Shift, I'll click on this large rectangle out there. And then while still holding Shift, I'll click on the border and then the inside shape. And with all of them selected, we want to go to Pathfinder and Unite, the button all the way to the left. I'm going to unite that all together. And we want to right-click that and go to Arrange, Send to the Back. And then hold Shift and click on this rectangle here in the center and come over here to where it says minus front. And then we want to click on the bull, hold Shift, click on the graphic, and go to minus front. We're going to do the same thing. Hold Shift, click on the star. I'm sorry. First we need to right-click on that and go to Arrange, Send to the Back. Then hold Shift, click on the star, and go to minus front. Right-click, go to Arrange, Send it to the back one more time, and then hold Shift, click on the word Illustrator, and minus front. And what we could do now is we go to Object, Ungroup, and we're going to change the opacity, bring it up to 100%, like that. And then we can click on the text and make that the same shade that the rest of the shape is. So I'm going to make this actually a little bit of an off black shade, like that. And that's pretty good. We can click and drag over the whole thing and scale it up or down however you'd like. And that's pretty much it. We're now finished. We have created our logo with Illustrator. So if you have any questions, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.